Fall Floral Pumpkin class. Today we are painting these beautiful floral pumpkin jars for the fall season. If you're here, that means you've registered for our class. Thank you so much. I am excited to dive in and show you how to create this awesome design. You have the choice between 3 different pumpkins. So you have our tall pumpkin, round pumpkin, and short pumpkin. Today, for this video's purpose, we will be painting the round pumpkin. Once you get your kit all packed up, what you'll find in there, your supplies are going to be your pumpkin, glazes, a couple of paintbrushes, a pencil, a stencil of all the designs that we'll be doing today, and then an instruction pack. You're also going to want to remember to grab yourself a jar of water for cleaning your brushes and a napkin for drying them. Before we begin, I just wanted to go over the color options for the pumpkin jars that you have to choose from. We did each one of our demos a different color combination, and you'll find the colors that we use on this little key in your instruction booklet. Today we'll be painting the round pumpkin, and the colors that we have chosen for this are a darker orange and a bit more of a mustardy brown for this one. We're going to begin with our lid, so you can put your base aside. We're going to paint our entire lid a couple coats of a white glaze. This is just to give us a base layer so that when we go to draw on our designs on top, if we make any mistakes, we have a barrier between our pencil and paint and the actual bare pottery, so it's easy to fix. We're going to begin with our largest brush, and this part should be super easy. Just going to start with one coat on the entire lid. Spread it out really nice and thin. You don't want any like thick areas. Just like that. Really nice and thin. It's going to dry pretty quick, and that is totally normal. Now I avoided the stem. It's okay if you get white on the stem though, so you could totally paint that too if you'd like. This should dry pretty quickly, so we can move on to our second coat once you see the shininess has disappeared. Now that our 2 coats of white have dried, we're going to put our lid aside and we're going to move on to our base. Now the color that we chose today to use for our base is called Basketball. It is a darker kind of orange. Got it right here. I'm just going to clean my brush off really well in the water. And then make sure to dry it really well with your napkin. You don't want any water dripping off your brush. It's okay if it's lightly damp. All right. And now we're basically just going to do 3 coats on the base. You can do whatever you like for the inside. I'm going to leave mine plain. We'll dip it in a clear glaze. It'll still come out shiny once it's fired. And I'm just going to focus on the outside now with 3 coats of my orange. Again, same technique. You want to spread it out nice and thin. You don't want to leave any like globby areas there. Really spread them out good. I like to do nice long brush strokes. It gives you more even coverage. And again, your first coat is going to dry the fastest. I'm going to give this a few minutes to dry, and then I'm going to go back in and do a second coat. Once your second coat is completely dry, no more shininess, you're going to give it a little extra time to dry, then you're going to go back and do your third coat. I'm going to go ahead and do these off camera. I just wanted to quickly show you the difference of how much more coverage you get even just on your second coat compared to your first. You see it's much darker and covers up all those white spots peeking through. So when we go back and do our third coat, it will really ensure that our color is nice and dark and even. All right, we've got 3 coats on our pumpkin. This is gonna need some extra time to dry, so I'm gonna put it aside. Move back to our lid, and I'm going to do 3 coats on our stem. I'm gonna use my smaller brush for this because it's not a large area. I'm just gonna go ahead and do 3 coats. our 3 coats on our stem and it is dry, we're gonna move on to sketching out our design. You'll have this little template here to help you kind of as a guide and a reference, and you'll also get a pencil. Pencil will burn away in the kiln, but it is super, super important to go as lightly as possible. A good trick for that is holding your pencil very lightly. You don't want like a really firm grip on it, just a nice light hold. And you're gonna just practice on your sheet for some really thin lines, thin enough that you can see them, but light enough that they're barely there. You do not want to go really thick like that. What happens is that your glaze won't stick very well to that surface of the pencil. So by really nice, thin, soft lines, you will have no issues with that. So take a minute to practice, get a feel for the designs, kind of their shapes. I like to trace them and just feel what it feels like, decide which designs you'd like to use, or if you'd like to change them, what changes you'd like to make. You can use the other side of the sheet to sketch things out. See what your favorite shapes are like and how they work. And then when you're ready, you're gonna come up with a design for the top of your pumpkin. This pumpkin has these little bumps across them, so I like to do a couple different leaf designs kind of across some of the bumps, just to fill up a large portion of space. I'm gonna do the tulip design. See how I'm just going nice and lightly. This is just to give you a general guide. It does not have to be perfect. And continue your pattern all the way around. Now you can take as much time planning this out as you'd like. I don't particularly love the design I came up with, so I'm going to show you how to fix it. You can rub your pencil away with your finger. Sometimes it's kind of strange to see the graphite spreading. It'll start to turn a little gray, but keep in mind pencil burns away completely, so it won't be there. But if it's really messing with your brain too much and you can't stand how it looks, you could do another coat or 2 of the white on top to completely cover it if you are unhappy. But it should rub away fairly easy. Alright, so I'm not sure if you can tell, but I actually went back and I redid my entire design. So I want you to know that that's totally okay, and it happens, and it is hopefully going to give you a better product in the end, something that you really, really like. So now it's time to paint. I'm gonna go in with my really skinny, tiny brush. I'm gonna start with all the stems on all my flowers because I know I'm gonna do them all in this darker blue shade. And I'm gonna go in with kind of a thicker coat, so that way I'm just doing 1 coat and not having to go back and spend a ton of time with it. Notice I don't do the entire line all in one go. Break it up into parts. And continue to load my brush in between, making sure it's nice and thick. And I'm just gonna go around the whole way with all my stems and doing this. Now, a tip for when you're going over these bumps in the pumpkin is to just go slow, take your time, and follow the straight line that you drew as best you can. It can be difficult to draw a straight line in a curved object. Just take your time with it. If you feel like you need your brush to be a little sharper, when you take it and dip into your paint, twirl it against the edge and try to get a nice tip on your brush. You'll notice I often use my pinky as a way to kind of balance my hand when I'm drawing a straight line too. That can be helpful. Just make sure you don't put it in any paint. Now, a couple tips when you're doing this portion. If you're struggling getting skinny lines, make sure that you're always using the tip of your brush when you're painting and not pressing down on the entire brush. So for example, using the tip would be just this part here, gently drawing your line. It'll keep it thinner. If you use the entire brush and you press too firmly, your line will be much thicker. One other tip I'd like to share with you too, because I just got paint in an area that I didn't want it, right down here, is to start with a really clean brush, dab off most of the water, and then use your brush to lightly just brush away. Once you have a little paint in your brush, you're going to want to clean it again because that paint can spread. Dab off the excess water and brush away again. That will help you fix any mistakes, and luckily we have that barrier of the white glaze below, so it won't leave any stains behind on our pottery. We're going to give this a minute before we dive in and start painting the rest of our flowers. Alright, now we're going to move on to painting our flowers. So you might want to take a minute also for this portion to kind of think through your design and how you want to paint your flowers. I think I'm going to do all of my tulips the same colors, this light purple, just like I did for the tall pumpkin jar. Very similar, because mine's going to be a set and I like them all to match. But when it comes to my flowers on these, other than the leaves basically, I have a few different shades here, and I'm going to kind of go crazy with them and do them in different orders, but you can do a pattern if you'd like. So like say we have purple, pink, and blue, you can do a pattern, purple, pink, blue, the whole way down. What I'm going to do though is make sure I don't necessarily ever have any of the same brown too close to my stem. So I'm always going to keep that further. So I'll probably start at the base with my brown and work my other colors to the top. I'm even going to throw in some of the blue, the same color as my stem, in there as well. I just have fun with this part. I'm going to do some pretty thick coats so that I don't have to go back and do too many. And notice how I just use the different pressures on my brush to get the shape that I'm looking for. So press down and glide my brush down. It's as simple as that. And I'm going to go back in and thicken it up. Press and drag, just like that. Go back and just add in an extra coat where my paint has dried. Not perfectly though, I kind of like that look of it thinner in some areas and thicker in others. Now for my petal shapes, I'm going to start at the top, drag it down, go to the side, and then just kind of widen it with that same kind of movement on my brush. Just like that. Once you get the hang of it too, if you start to make your petals in a certain way, you don't necessarily always have to continue following your lines. Once you really get used to it and into it, You notice here I wasn't perfectly following my lines because your pencil will burn away. Well, because I'm going over the little bend here in the pumpkin, I'm going to start with a straight line. That's easiest for me, and then work from there, make tend to be thicker or thinner than others. This brown is feeling a little thick to me, so I'm just gonna add a tiny bit of water to it. You can definitely play with the thickness of your paint if it doesn't feel right to you. Just know that the more water you add to it, the more translucent it will be once fired. You don't water it down too much. That just gives me a smoother surface. I'm going to continue going around the whole lid. Alright, so here's my finished product. And here is my base. You can see how much the color changes once the paint is completely dry. It's kind of crazy. I'm going to put my lid on. Now, there's a couple things to do before we're completely finished. Your inside, if you haven't already painted that, I'm going to do just a fun little like splatter design on the inside of mine. So I'm going to take my large brush and load it up with paint, and then just kind of tap it against my finger to create a cool splatter design. And you can go as crazy as you want with it or not. I'm definitely gonna go a little crazier. Now, last but not least, we need to make sure your initials are on your pottery so that we know it belongs to you. Once it goes in the kiln, it will get separated, so we need to make sure that we know that the lid goes to the base. So we're gonna put our initials on both using our smaller brush and whatever color you'd like. I think I'm gonna do white on the base so that it contrasts against the orange that I painted. If this is a gift for someone, you can write their name on it. And we just need anything that's going to identify it as yours. I also always love to put the year for the memory on the bottom. And this does need to be in paint because your pencil will burn away. So once your initials are on both your base and your lid, then you're all set to go. Thank you guys so much for following along.